Good evening and welcome to the corporate parenting meeting. It's now 7 p.m. and I would like to start this meeting. I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded for publication on the council's website. Is there any apologies for absence? I've received apologies from Councillor Chukwu, Councillor Coxall, Councillor Arnold, Kelly Pauline, Calais Banks, Tina Russell, and Claire Angle. Are there any further apologies?
Yeah, Council Assistant is on our way.
Okay. Items of urgent business. No items of urgent business have been received. Minutes. I move that the minutes of the agenda meeting held on 13th March 2025 as aligned in agenda are approved as correct record. Are there any comments on the accuracy of the minutes?
Sorry, Chair, it's not about the minutes, it's just to say that I'm substituting for Councillor Coxall tonight.
Once moved, members have indicated that the agreement to any proposal should make one of the following announcements. The minutes are now approved. Declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest to make? Okay. I would like to call on the young voices. I want to take them first because they want to do their presentation. So before we can go through the other agendas for today.
Hi everyone, I'm Jasmine, co-chair of Young Voices.
And I'm Crystal, the other co-chair of Young Voices.
We won't talk through the whole report, we'll just be speaking about the highlights. Young Voices Power Participation Workshop. We have run 2 sessions this year. The latest was Through Our Eyes on 28th of May, led by 4 of us for senior leaders. We talked about our care journeys and how protected characteristics could help create more opportunities for care leavers. We recently did a foster care training on 1st of September. That went really well. We will update you in the next report about that one.
Young inspectors, we have 10 young inspectors trained, and we've already done 17 inspections. Everyone has grown in confidence and been part of it.
Young Voices Aftercare Information Fair and Food event. In July, Young Voices hosted an event at Grangewaters for children in care and care leavers. 37 young people came along and 22 services set up stalls to share information. Our care leaver ambassador managed a feedback and information table where young people could find out about participation opportunities and sign up for anything they were interested in. We had a barbecue, music, sunshine, and even budgeting sessions with raffle prizes. Everyone left with helpful information. This was a good day. Very special twilight session at Grangewaters. Instead of our usual forum meetup, we had a twilight session in July at Grangewaters. There were 16 of us, split between younger and older age groups. We built rafts and took them out on the water. We then chilled by the campfire, had hot dogs for dinner, followed by toasted marshmallows. It was a fun night and we welcomed 3 new members to the group. Regional Activity Day, East of England. In August, 18 of us went to Cambridge for the first ever meetup with Thurrock, Cambridge, Norfolk and Suffolk. This was a great day. We met new people, shared stories and had fun. Some of us did interviews about our care journeys and others played in a football tournament. Thurrock won the trophy.
Young Voices at Grangewaters annual event. In August, we had an annual Young Voices event at Grangewaters to celebrate International Youth Day. 49 young people came along with parents and carers. In the morning, we had crazy golf, arts and crafts, football and rounders. In the afternoon, we did lake activities, tower climbing, and we had loads of fun all day. Coming up, National Care Leavers Month, November 2025. We are looking forward to seeing what is on offer for the service to celebrate care leavers during Care Leavers Month in November, especially that is now it is a whole month rather than a week. The theme is Rising as Me, overcoming challenges, transforming and finding your identity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for your report, Andy. I was reading it and I was going through the report and I can see you guys came first. And this was the first regional participation for Thurrock Young Voices. So I will say congratulations for the performance. And is it gonna be a yearly event going forward? The regional, the event that you had in East Regional events.
Yeah, we're gonna try. Yeah, the with the Eastern region, there's with the activity day, it's a yearly thing. But then every month there is also a meeting online where we meet with the other people as well.
Does any members have anything to say, to add?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure many of you will recognise me. I was chair last year, but not anymore. Anyway, I just want to ask, National Care Leavers Month, do we have any information on that? Will there be any events in the evening? Because most of the time they're during the day. Do we know any information at the moment or not yet?
Hi, I'm Adriana, team manager for participation. We are in the stages of planning for the November Care Leavers Month. We majority of these events, because we've got young people who are in college, they are in university, there are some twilight sessions as well. But we will keep you up to date with what's coming up. Thank you.
If they could be advertised, so we'd know, please, because some councillors work. I could just leave it there. Some councillors work, but some councillors work during the day, and it's harder to get to some meetings during the day. But in the evenings, we find it easier to get to them. So hopefully, it'd be really nice to be there and support you. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to say on the back of that, we have got a task and finish working group as well of our colleagues across the service to support our young group with that month.
Item 5. Sorry, sorry.
Thank you. Thurrock Young Voices, what a remarkable group you really are. And thank you so much for sharing everything you've done. But I just want to push you a little bit more. And what I would really like to see is what you've got planned for next year as well. So you've got stuff happening all this year. And I know that we're only sitting in September and you've got November coming and you're planning. But it'd be really lovely to see your programme for next year as well, so we can already start booking in. Members can start already planning their diaries if they can come, and non-members, maybe that, like me, if I don't get elected, then I will come along still as my resident. So that would be really fantastic to see.
Any other comment?
Yeah, thanks. It's always really lovely to hear what you're doing, and I'm always impressed. And I'm really pleased to see you've got the young inspectors. That seems to be going really well. So you've got 10 already trained, so that's great. I went to the day at Grange Waters, saw you there, and just say that was a really lovely day as well. You're lucky with the weather. I particularly noted the budget training session that was in the hut there, wasn't it? And how well attended that was. And I think that must be ever so useful for young people as they're coming up to sort of independence, financial independence. So, yeah, I'm really encouraged by it all. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, okay, sorry.
Sorry, one more. Yeah, adding on from what Councillor Assistant said about the inspectors, what is it you do there, and what have you learnt from the inspections, please?
So me and Crystal are also young inspectors. So what we do is with every inspection, beforehand, we get a little brief of who we're going to meet, who we're going to be asking questions, and we get a list of questions that we ask the young person. And then when we go to the place, we obviously go to the supported accommodation, we look around, we talk to the staff, the young people, we look through all our notes. And then after we've done that full inspection, then we also do a follow-up report where we write a summary of everything that we've done and what we've learned, or what have we learned. One of the things is we've learned how everyone's situation is different, and we just like to think of all different ways that we want to improve for them, and knowing that we have a little part in helping change for them and also for us is really nice for us to think about. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I won't ask any more questions, but just from what Councillor Watson said, you're just amazing what you do. And I'm sure that we've got some new members on the committee today. Actually, we haven't tonight, have we, apart from, sorry, yourself. But it's just really good what you do, and we're in awe of you. So thank you for everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll move on to the next agenda. Thank you. So I'll move on to the next agenda. Performance report for corporate parenting can be found on pages 13 to 34 of the agenda. Can I ask Elise Marquin to present the report, please?
Yes, hello. I'm presenting the report on the understanding that it's been read, so I'll do the executive summary and some key highlights, and then I'll take some questions, okay? So this report provides information on the performance in relation to children looked after and care leavers. The overall performance of the service is good, and the report focuses on data for Q1 2025-26, drawing on internal performance data statutory returns. The number of looked after children in Thurrock has remained stable over the reporting period, with 272 children in care as at the end of June 2025. This represents a slight decrease from 277 in April. The children looked after rate stands at 60% per 10,000, which remains below the statistical neighbours' average of 62 and the national average of 70. The number of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children currently in care is 30, which is below Thurrock's National Transfer Scheme allocation of 45. These children have predominantly been teenage males, and their reduced numbers have contributed to the overall decline in looked after children numbers. In terms of children leaving care, children leaving care are leaving care through planned and stable routes, returning home, moving to adoption, special guardianship, or staying put with foster carers into adulthood. Our placements, 72% of children live within 20 miles of home, and that's an improvement, a slight improvement on previous reporting. And placement stability remains strong, supported by good matching, supervision, and our wraparound services. Performance is steady in most areas for care leavers, and in terms of visits, 97% of visits on time, and missing episodes are reduced, and nearly 90% of return home interviews are accepted by young people. Health does remain an area of improvement. Whilst all children's needs are met, initial health assessments are not consistently completed within statutory timescale, which we have discussed previously, and we have improved our internal referral process and working with health colleagues on a new delivery model. For care leavers, performance is strong. Over 96% are in suitable accommodation and almost all are in touch, and this is above the national average. 48% of our 19 to 20 roles and in education, employment or training, and this is an area that we know we need to improve on with our young people, and we're tackling this through weekly EAT panels and targeted support. That's an overview. I'm happy to take any questions or go down through the report if required.
Members, do you have any questions? Okay, Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Eloise, for the report. So just I've got a couple of comments and then a question, if that's okay. So I can see that the CLA rate is low, which is good, and also the unaccompanied asylum seekers number is also quite low as well, isn't it? So that's good. There remains an issue with the initial health assessments. That seems to be an ongoing concern. What sort of measures are you putting in place to really try and address this? Because this seems to come up sort of every time, doesn't it?
It does really, and there's kind of a two-pronged approach to the initial health assessments and being on time, and that's ensuring that the paperwork is received by health within 5 working days, and then health's availability to offer those appointments. In terms of our internal systems, we've looked at improving the way that we ensure that our paperwork is collected within 5 working days, and that means that sometimes where we might have ordinarily, with young people, we might have ordinarily spoke to them and asked them to perhaps, you know, with their parents sign it within the first couple of days, we've moved that actually to right at the point of them coming into care. So whilst we have 5 working days, we've improved our practice to happen on the day, because it's really important if people's children come into care that actually that they realise and understand that we want to support that child with their health needs, but we want the parents to give permission for that, because we work with the parents at that point. We've also improved on our relationships with our health colleagues in our weekly meetings. So we have a tracker, and we not only track that weekly, internally we track daily now. So we're tracking all our health assessments. What I can say to you is that from May we had 25 children who came into care, and what we had is 3 of that 22 went over to health in time. That's 88%, and of that 88%, there was 52% in time from the health services. But 4 are waiting for an appointment, that's 16%. So actually, of the ones that went over, 8 of those were late, but of the 8 that were late, some is because of health don't have the resource to give all the appointments, but there was several of those, at least 2 of those children, young people who didn't want to have their health assessment, older teenagers, and we had 1 young carer who was on holiday when the appointment was given. So you can see there that whilst it is an issue and it remains an issue, that what we've put in place is actually improving on the percentage of health outcomes. However, we report 2 months behind, and the reason we do that is because we have to do the whole journey. Like, we have to say the report, the referral going in, the appointment being given, the appointment happening, and then the report coming back to us. And only when we have that report back in our hands are we satisfied that the loop's been closed, and then we put our measures in.
So it sounds like these new measures are improving, and obviously we can monitor that over the coming quarters as well to check that that's still the case. But
I mean,
yeah, sounds good.
I would say that those measures were in place, so it's not like suddenly we've put the measures in place, but I think it's about supporting the whole system and managing the whole system all of the time, because it's quite a complex set of things that we have to do when children come into care, you know. And so yes, it's about constantly being on top of it.
It's more like sort of tighter controls of what you're already doing, more or less, then. Okay. Thank you.
So, thank you. And just following up on Councillor Rigby, this must be the most frustrating bit I've ever had on the health assessment, because it's been not right for years, not just now. So first of all, we had NELF, or we were in contract with them, they weren't hitting their targets. Then we've had, well, the problem is we've got to have a special GP that's a paediatric that can fill in that, and that all the time, bearing in mind I've been off of corporate parenting, but I've been on and off, we've had the same thing all the time. There is something, there's something there. Don't worry, we're on top of it. Don't worry, we're going to do it. Don't worry. But the reality is it hasn't been done, and it hasn't moved anywhere forward. So now there's a revised model for practice to improve the timelines of it. So that's something new that's now coming in. So what is actually the timeline for that practice to improve? Because this isn't just, as I said, this year, last year, year after. This has been constant for years and years. And the other thing as well, I really thought that a health professional like the ICB would actually be sitting in here and answering these questions. So I really would like them to come in and face that, because this is where it lays. So you can understand the frustration, because the health assessments also help our foster carers know what they need for that child. And we're letting our foster carers down. Now, that we've got a 20-day deadline to do that, so someone somewhere thought that was applicable to actually do. So I'm sorry if I sound really frustrated, but to be honest with you, I would really want to see a health professional, the ICB or NELF, sitting in here to ask what is going on their head. Because 2 years ago, they were sitting opposite where Tendi is right now, telling me that they're dealing with it all and it's going to be fine and we're going to be hitting the targets. So I don't get the reassurance, and even though you're reassuring Councillor Rigby and here, it's actually not reassuring for me, because it's failed.
I'm going to answer a little bit, and then Janet will probably come in and after me. But I think the thing is, so we can be responsible for our part, which is our responsibility to our children that we're working on. But I think in terms of the health services, that's not a Thurrock issue for the last 4 years. That's a national issue throughout the whole of the country, where the initial health assessment are not being completed within timescale because of shortage in the health service. However, they are revising their model right across. They have to answer to that. I can't answer to that. So I think what I'm saying to you is that it's recognised as an absolute national problem, and therefore the whole delivery model has to be revised in order for that to happen in time.
I mean, I'm not going to make excuses. I kind of concur with you, really. The performance is not good enough. We know it's not good enough, and I'm disappointed that our health colleagues aren't sitting here tonight to have that conversation, and we need to accept the areas where we don't kind of do the things. So what we've done is tighten up our referral process to make sure that we're getting them there to health on time. And there's going to be reasons sometimes where we don't get them in time, because parents have to consent if it's in a Section 20 agreement. But we're trying to get our referrals in on time, and there's been some real tightness in terms of what we expect of staff within the service. Now, in terms of health colleagues, you're right, we're kind of coming here and there's reassurances, and they're not reassurances. So I'm not going to say I feel reassured, because I'm not seeing the climbing in performance in the way I would want to see it. But I'm looking at the data now, and I can see that there's been some improvement over the last 2 months, but it's about sustaining it, because it sometimes feels like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. We are driving that. We are having those conversations, and our executive director has raised it as high as it can be raised within the health authority, within health. Following our Ofsted inspection, Ofsted wrote to health as well about the performance, and we will continue to drive it. And you're right, health need to be at this table. They should be at corporate parenting. They should be here tonight having that conversation and taking responsibility alongside us. I don't think it's just health's responsibility. You know, I think it's all of our responsibilities, children's social care and health. And all we can do is keep pushing and pushing. And we will continue to escalate it and continue to make a fuss about it. And if we could deal with it in a different way, we would. So we are having to think about what can we do differently. But I can't give you the answer you probably need, except to say, you're right, the performance is not acceptable.
So thank you, but they are actually developing a revised model, which it says in this report. So what is the timeline for us to get that revised model?
I haven't seen a revised model as yet. So I kind of think health need to be here to talk about the revised model and how it's going to make a difference. So, yes. I'll be escalating that tomorrow because I fully expected them to be here tonight, so I will be escalating that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Councillor Sisterson, yes, before.
That's all right. No, thank you, Chair. Just going through it, one of the things that's sort of, I mean, it's all really healthy, like suitable accommodation is definitely quite a bit higher than neighbours and things like that, so that's really good. I think one concern is the numbers 19 to 21-year-olds not in education, employment or training. And I'm not saying, you know, we're pretty much the same as neighbours and not that far behind the national average. I just wondered how that, I mean, it's less than half of our looked after children that are at that age in education, employment or training, so that leaves over half not. I just wondered how that compared to the general population. I'm assuming it is quite a bit lower. I don't know if you got those figures or not.
I haven't got those figures on hand tonight, but I can find them and come back to you. I can definitely do that. So I'll take that up as an action and make sure that it comes back via Carly to committee.
Thank you. I think that it would enable us to get a better picture of where we are, if you see what I mean. Although I fully appreciate you're doing all you can. You know, I can see from the report that there's a lot of work going into it. But
And we are trying to do some work, like I think I was saying in the training. We're trying to think about how we can be creative with young people. So when we're taking out contracts, you know, commissioning services. So we're looking at what other local authorities have done. Where maybe commissioning contracts, as part of that, there's an expectation that they will offer opportunities to our care leavers. When we're looking at apprenticeships, can we do things slightly different? You know, so rather than just going, there's an apprenticeship over there, it's 5 days a week, you go in 5 days or you can't do it. So can we do something that's maybe 1 day a week? Can each of the directorates provide opportunities for young people to get work experience? You know, to sort of work alongside some of the, you know, we employ a whole load of people to do a whole range of work for us, and just trying to think a little bit more creatively and give young people those opportunities that they can think, you know what, I've tried that and that's quite nice, I quite enjoyed it, but maybe they might have to try 2 or 3 times, think different things before they get somewhere. The numbers aren't where we would like them to be. We are ambitious. I know we're near where everybody else is, but that doesn't mean just because we're where everybody else is, it's okay. So yeah, we're definitely trying to improve that.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask everyone to read the second paragraph on page 10, please, in the minutes? I'll let you get there first. Because I'm either having a moment or I'll explain in a minute, please. The second paragraph, during questions from the committee. Page 10. It was remarked that in February 25, 100% of initial health assessments were held on time. Am I missing something? But on page 24 of this graph, it says in February, 57.1% was held on time. Is it something different? Am I missing something? Or because I was chair then and it did get mentioned, the minutes are correct. So are we getting different figures for some reason, or is there a reason for this, please?
So the thing is with percentages, they don't give numbers. This was reporting, I think that came via health rather than the local authority. And I think this represented 2. So, you know, it's about, if you kind of, if 2, so you might have 10 in a month and 2 are done, and then that, of course, is 20%. But if you've done 2 out of 2, that's 100%, but it's because of the numbers.
Yeah, what I'm saying though is in page 10 it said, I'll read it out loud. During questions from the committee, it was remarked that in February 2025, 100% of the initial health assessments, IHA, were held on time. Members heard this was the authority's care figures. Sorry, members heard this was as the authority's care figures were steadying. The current target for March 2025, it was 70% of IHA were held within 20 days of a child coming to the care system. But on the graph, the updated graph we got on page 24, it says in February 25, which is the same month this is talking about, that 57.1% was...
So we report our data 2 months behind. There's a reason we do that, to make sure we capture all of the initial assessments for the month. Now, if health are report, because this is health's reporting, not the local authorities reporting, if there's a lag in terms of the data, they're reporting on what was done at the time. But what we're saying is, now we've certified that data, it's not 100%. And that's why it's really important that we're both here having that conversation so that we're clear. Sorry, somebody else wanted to say something.
Sorry, I was only just going to come in from that as well, because I was at that meeting and I remember it was a verbal update given by health, and it wasn't, we hadn't seen the evidence behind it when that verbal update was given, and I take it that now the evidence, as I say, that the evidence has come in and the reporting system has been completed, but it definitely was a verbal update from the health colleagues that were sat in the back there that unfortunately aren't here today to continue that conversation.
Okay, thank you. Well, without any sounding wrong, can we not ask for verbal updates that are not up to date, please? I know I'm not the chair, but what's the point when they are 43% out? Sorry, but thank you.
Councillor Speed, please.
Thank you, Chair. So going on the same subject, if you look at the recommendations that we've got to make tonight on this report, 1.2, members scrutinise the performance data and provide challenge to the service and relevant partners on how, as corporate parents, we are ambitious for our children. So we're all agreed around the room that these figures aren't good enough. We're a little concerned that there doesn't seem to be a map of how we're going to get there. And we're also concerned that our partner organisations, particularly the Integrated Care Board, are not here to answer questions. Now, we haven't got another corporate parenting meeting for quite a while. This is something that's been going on now, as Councillor Rigby said, for a number of meetings where things haven't got any better. We've got a recommendation here to accept 1.2. Can we not ask, as part of that recommendation, that our sort of sister joint committee, the children's meeting, which I think takes place on the 18th of September, at which I'm hoping, I'm sure the ICB would be represented, and if not, I think there's the power to invite them. They're not on the attendees list, but if I go back to and get Councillor Rigby, remember at our last adult meeting, the ICB came along, Tom Adele, and was basically incredibly apologetic about the failings of the service and pledged X, Y, and Z as to how they were going to get better, and we will therefore hold them to account when they next come before that committee. I think, you know, stepping outside the danger of getting into silo working, is it not feasible for us as a committee, as if you like it, recommendation 1.2 brackets A, that we ask the Children's Services Committee to look at this when they've got the requisite people in front of them, or if they're not in front of them, invite them to go to that meeting. You sit on that committee, there are other people here that will be there, Janet will be there, and rather than us just let it drag until our next meeting, why don't we be proactive and just ask whether it's either as an urgent business matter, I'm sure the chair can work that out, whatever, but we actually ask them to look at it when they've got the people in front of them, and then when we next meet, we'll be able to read some answers, we can watch the video, we can come and sit at the meeting. So we've been proactive rather than just sitting and waiting for things to develop.
Can we agree on maybe any dates or any meeting, any further meetings for them to be present to answer any question regarding that?
If it helps, Chair, I'm happy to make a recommendation 1.3 that this committee asks our fellow committee to look into this matter as a matter of urgency. And that can go as a recommendation. The clerk can pass it over from one committee to the other. And it may not happen, but at least we're seen to have asked for it to happen. So in those sort of words, I could happily add that in as recommendation 1.3 when we come to recommendations.
Okay. I'll take that on board. Okay. I'll discuss with the officers about it, and we can get maybe a date or kind of an arrangement of how we can get them to provide further clarification information on the concerns we've raised. Is that agreed? Pardon?
So clearly, albeit overview and scrutiny, I have no issue with talking about this at overview and scrutiny if that's required of me. I don't have any control over health and what they will or won't do, because I'm just aware that overview and scrutiny is in a matter of about 2 weeks.
Okay. So what do members think? Any suggestion from members?
Thank you, Chair. I was only going to say, Janet, if we could pick that up, the pair of us to do it, so if we pick it up and run with that tomorrow together, so if I do that as a portfolio holder and you as well, we'll try and pick that up together to push that.
So, you want to make any?
Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Sorry.
To the next item on the agenda, adoption statement of purpose on page. Sorry, I'm not on the recommendations first. Recommendations on page 14, 1.1. The members agree with the recommendations on page 14, 1.1 and 1.2.
I'm happy to second, their recommendations there, whether you just take them as read or noted. But I would like, somebody would have to second me adding in another recommendation that at least we refer it. So we've got a paper trail. I think it's great. Janet's just mentioned it. Vicky's just mentioned it. They'll press it and do it. But there is a great danger they're incredibly busy. We've got a point of reference here. It may not materialise for perfectly valid reasons, but we as a committee can say, well, we did raise it, we put it there, and if it doesn't happen, then whoever's in charge of the work programme for our next meeting, and yourself or whoever's chairing, can maybe put it down as an item of business. Yeah.
All right, we'll do that.
I'll second that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
Our next item on the agenda is adoption statement of purpose on pages 45 to 47, 45 to 76. Can I ask Elise McQueen to present the report, please?
Sorry, Chair. I was just going to clarify if we had got that in at recommendation 1.3 and the wording on it. I'm not sure if we'd agreed on what we were saying. Yeah, but so we would suggest that maybe, is it the portfolio holder is going to make contact and try and invite the ICB to the next meeting and get an update? Yeah, I just wasn't sure we agreed on the wording of the recommendation, that was all.
So I was just going to say, did we want to pick it up with the portfolio holder and the chair? Vice Chair? Do you think that would be more effective if the pair of us picked it up alongside Janet? Do you think as I'm just thinking about the more weight behind it, perhaps. That's all I was just thinking, you know.
So maybe as the recommendation would be that the portfolio holder and the chair of Children's Open Scrutiny Committee will take it forward from here, but that is the recommendation, if that's okay with the committee.
Could I just ask, I mean, I don't know, I mean, obviously within the adult section and prior to when it was people, it was a standing invitation to us. They didn't always come, but it was a standing invitation, and more often than not, we had an agenda item. I mean, do we know if they're likely to be at that particular meeting? I mean, I haven't seen your work programme. I don't know what's on it, to my chagrin, and I should have maybe, well, I can't look it up because it's not 7 days away, but as Councillor Rigby eloquently put it, if we can, and I'm sure Carly can word it in such a way, and we trust them to do it, that it drops to Janet and Vicky to work together. So, it's referred to that meeting at some point. How it's referred to is probably going to be down to the chair, and I'm sure there will be a pre-meeting meeting with Janet and directors and other people. So let's trust the people around this table to get the spirit of what we've all just said and hopefully see it. Because I just, this is, as I say, as Councillor Rigby started by saying, this is not the first time we've discussed this. It's not the second time. It's not even the third time. I've gone back through previous meetings. And we need to support our officer colleagues by saying we take this seriously and we want it to be taken seriously. And then they can, if they need to, as I've said often, ask for more resource. Because it's quite interesting the reasons why. If you look at the risk thing, it's sort of mitigate, even with mitigation and planning to do this, that and the other, we're still only at amber. So our expectation is already falling short of 100% improvement. So are there things we can do to get us to 100% improvement, which is where we all want to be?
Okay, maybe I will also agree with the recommendation from the members. We can add that as a part of the recommendations, and we can word it and put it on the next agenda. Or portfolio holder, myself, and officers, we can work on it. Is that agreed on?
No, I agree this needs to now go forward and have some recommendations to go into an ONS to be held account and help support the, like Councillor Spate has actually said, because this has been going on for I've been here for 5 years and it's not been sorted since then. So we just need to be reactive on this. What I would like to come back is what the outcome of that ONS is actually came out as. And then put some action plans in process so we know what we're actually looking at, because as a corporate parent, and we're taking that responsibility, then we have got a duty to care to our children to ensure that these are done right. So my question is on children's ONS, is ICB or any NHS professionals sit on there?
We haven't had one yet. As is the first one, the 16th of September is the first one, but I don't think there's any of those colleagues on the list. I'll have a look in a second, but I don't think they are, no.
Can we try and ensure that
that's what I was just going to say,
something really feasible comes out of this, and it's not just talking with our officers again, because we just need a health professional sitting in there.
So if I could just come back, Chair. Sorry, I was just going to say, and if we could just clarify, if you could just let me know what committee we've agreed on, because as I said, a little bit of confusion at the moment as to whether it's corporate parenting or ONS, as in who I'm liaising with, if that can be what the recommendation is, and then I'll know what I'm doing and then I can crack on with it. Thank you.
I think it should be children ONS for that recommendation to go through. The children ONS committee, yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. So the next agenda is adoption statement of purpose on pages 45 to 76. And I ask Elise Marquin to present the report, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go through the report as the report having been read, but I am going to touch on the report and also refer to my notes, and then I'll take any questions. So this report is to update members of the Committee on Thurrock's Council's adoption statement of purpose, which is reviewed annually. Members are advised that the adoption statement of purpose now reflects the Adopt East Regional adoption alliances, and is in common with regional partners. I just want to apologise in advance because I'm scrolling down the report on my computer. Okay, so the statement of purpose sets out the principles, values and aims and objectives of the Thurrock Council Adoption Agency, and it contains information about the services, how it's monitored, how it operates to benefit children. Now, our overarching aim is to provide secure and loving homes to children in need of permanence via adoption and to support those children and their families as long as is needed. We offer child-led and adoption-friendly services by an experienced and motivated professional team. The statement of purpose provides information for children and young people, birth relatives, prospective and approved adopters, elected members, adoption panel members, staff members of the public and other stakeholders. So that's basically what it's for. It's a whole document which sets out what we do and how we do it and why we do it. So the aims and objectives are the Adoption Act 2002 promotes adoption as a permanent option for children in care. The Act places the needs and welfare of the children at the centre of adoption process, with the welfare of the child being the paramount consideration for a court or adoption agency and all decisions relating to their adoption. Adopt East Thurrock supports the ethos that children and young people are best able to develop close and enduring relationships within a family setting. And I think it's important to say at this point is that for all of our children are coming to care, that you know, where possible, we would like our children to be with their family. That's the absolute first and foremost values and aims that we have. So the objectives of Adopt East Thurrock are two, and I've just listed the key points because there's actually quite a few, but it's meet the requirements of Adoption and Children Acts, as I've said, the associated standards, regulation and guidance, promote best practice in adoption through the provision and advice of support of children's social work colleagues, and ensure the assessment and preparation of adoptive families is comprehensive and robust in order that adopters are aware of the prepared needs, adopters are aware of and prepared to meet the needs of children for whom adoption is in the plan. So I'm just going to refer to my notes here because it's taken from the report. So basically, in terms of what we provide is recruitment, assessment, training and support. So we have a process where prospective adopters or members of the public would like to consider adoption, and there's a process that they go through. In terms of the family, it's really important that children who are considered and placed for adoption have the right match. So that's a part of our expertise when we assess people, is ensuring that those, when they go through panel and they're approved, and then where there's children who need to be adopted, that match is crucial. In terms of support across the journey, so we have a number of support that's outlined in the report, but we support our birth parents through counselling and independent support. We have adoption support, assessments, pre and post order, and adoption support plans at matching. We've got practical financial support subject to assessment and groups, contact mediation, education liaison. We have therapeutic input via adoption and special guardianship support fund, known as the ASGFSF. We do life story books for our children and later life letters to statutory standards and timescales. And our service is through to adults lifelong, so adults can come back when they're older and have access to their birth records and counselling. And then we have special guardianship, which is for children who, it's contained within the statement of purpose, but it's for children who aren't adopted, but actually are secured through a special guardianship order. So we offer assessments, mediation, training, therapy, and financial support based on needs. And then we have our overview. We have our adoption and fostering panel, which you'll hear about later this evening. So I'm happy to take any questions on that. There's quite a lot in here, and I feel like I've given you the skeleton, but it's so detailed and so in-depth. In terms of the adoption process, it's in stages. So there's a stage 1 and then there's a stage 2. And for prospective adopters at stage 1, when they've completed stage 1, because it's quite comprehensive, they actually have a choice to pause 6 months before they move on to stage 2. And then they can either have a continuing or they can pause and then we can pick it up again. Is there any questions?
Councillor Sisters.
Yeah, it's a good, thorough report. So the East, what area does it cover, the Adopt East? Who do you work with? Is it just this report you're sharing, basically? So you've got the same values and processes?
Okay, so we're part of Adopt East, but we deliver the services through Thurrock. Adopt East itself is 11 areas in the region. So it's like Bedford and Essex, and I'm going to get them all wrong now. But I did write them all down, but yeah, those in the Eastern region.
Everything is actually carried out within Thurrock. You don't operate with the families and children from the other areas, presumably.
Okay, so when we a child is assessed as, or we have a placement order for a child to be adopted, I'm trying to think of the right language to be sensitive to parents and to adopters. So when a child we have a placement order for a child that can be adopted, as part of the region, we are able to access adopters within that pool and within that area. So that is something that we do. So it's not limited to Thurrock within that. And that's about giving the children the best opportunity.
Yeah, I understand that, because presumably there aren't... how many a year would you look at being coming up for adoption in Thurrock itself? I'm presuming there's not not a huge number.
I think I've got the numbers with me, but I need to look for them.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, sorry, do you?
No, I'm just going to say it was 8 children were adopted in the last financial year.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you. It's just under the risks, where you've said there's a misalignment between Thurrock's statement of purpose and Adopt East regional standards could lead to inconsistencies in service delivery, and then the mitigation, ongoing collaboration with Adopt East partners to ensure consistency and compliance. The risk status is at green. So is that a little ambitious, or are you quite confident with that?
I'll just take a minute to read it.
Sorry.
I don't think it is ambitious, because I think even though it's a risk and it's been recorded there, I think that the way that we work is consistent with the adoption national minimum standards right across, and the high standards. So I don't think it is a significant risk. I think it is a green. I think it's just something that's been picked up that could be. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Spence.
Yeah, just one thing in the actual statement itself. I think it's on page 9. We've got a graphic that lays out who does what, but it's about as much use really as an Astra on a motorbike in terms of actually knitting together who does what. And it's interesting that Elise, you just mentioned the fact that Thurrock is one of a wider number of organisations managing adoption through, let's call it the East of England, for want of a better phrase. I just think as this is a document that people are going to refer to and try and understand, I defy anybody, and maybe I'm the idiot and everybody else can do it, but just looking at that graphic that starts with Dave Smith at the top and then comes down to, you know, on the bottom row, senior administrators and whatever. I don't really know what that's trying to tell me. And I just think as we're in the information business, by making these statements a purpose, I just think, you know, maybe for, even if it's only for next year, something a little bit more informative could come out. Because I really, you know, I don't quite understand the purpose of that graphic in front of us. And the link lines don't seem to, well, there are obscure link lines going out the side, but not on the other side. I just think it could be better and have a lot more clarity and a lot more information, even if it ended up doing it over 3 pages rather than trying to cram it all into one. And this is a document that's going to last for a year before it's next reviewed. So maybe the next time it comes up, if you don't want to change it in the interim, somebody can give a bit of thought to doing a better graphic.
Yeah, thank you. Point noted.
I have a question. Oh, I have a question. Just I wanted to find out the children who are on the waiting list for adoption. How long does it take for a child to be adopted? What's the duration in the life?
It's in the report, but I believe that currently it's 396 days from coming into care to being in an adoptive placement. I think that was in the performance report that I'm referring to, so I can be accurate. I think the thing is that whilst that's our figure now and we're above the national, I think that there is going to be further delays for children before they come into care and they go to an adoptive placement. There's a national shortage of adopters, for one thing, but also there's delays in the judiciary service, so there's delays in courts and final hearing. So over time, because of the shortage of adopters and because of the judiciary timescales, it means children might be waiting longer than they did before.
How long does it take? Is it 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years for a child to wait to be adopted once the process starts?
It's like the average is 396 days that our performance is, but actually it would just depend because there's a term called relinquished child. If there's a relinquished child that doesn't go through the proceedings and that goes through the court, that's a much shorter time, can be a shorter period. However, if we're in proceedings, children looked after court proceedings I'm referring to is anything from 26 weeks onwards. So once that's concluded, and then you have to think about your linking, your matching, your introductions, and then a transition for a child moved in, because none of this can be rushed. So it could be anything from 4 months, it could be anything up to 14 months, but every child's an individual, or a sibling group's an individual. Janet would like to do a better answer.
No, not a better answer, just supplement her answer. It's not a better answer. Elise is probably more the expert on this than I am. You know, but what I would say is, look, because Elise sort of concluded every child is an individual. Our plans for children are never, at the very beginning, adoption. We're always trying to see if we can rehabilitate children back with the parents. So there's a whole range of things we need to do before adoption is considered, such as assessing parents, looking to see if there's anybody within the family network that can look after the child. If at all possible, we have a number of options. So when we're kind of looking at permanency planning and thinking about what the long-term plan will be for a child, we are thinking of a number of options. The first option should always be, can they go home? Can the parent care for them? Is there anybody within the family network that can care for them if the parent can't care for them? Are there any siblings? And should they be placed together or apart? There's a whole range of things you have to do. So it takes time, because it has to be the right decision. You're severing the parents' rights if you adopt a child. So we have to be confident that it is the right thing for a child. And we can be in proceedings, and then the parent might have another child whilst we're in the court proceedings. That can delay things because the court will want to join the new baby. So there's a whole range of things that can impact on how long it takes to get from the first day in care to the day they're adopted. So it's not a strictly linear thing where you can go A, B, C, D. Things can go backwards, they can go forwards, things can change. We can think that adoption's the plan, and then somehow the parent turns things around and we think, you know what, they might be able to do it. And we have to kind of maybe look at another kind of assessment. So, and what we can do to support them. So it isn't linear, it's not as simple as, 100 days. Of course, there are, we want children to be matched and placed and adopted within as short a time frame as possible. But it's got to be within their needs as well. And when we sever that right and we sever those links between the parent and the child, we need to make sure we've made the right decisions, that when they come back, they can see, that we made every effort for them to be with their parent.
Any more questions? Okay, Councillor was.
Sorry, thank you. Can I just ask a quick question going back? I do understand your organisation chart. The bit that I think it needs to be fleshed out is probably things about what is letterbox contact and what does that all mean. But also, you've got an independent adoption panel chair. So you've got a whole is that panel chair just for Thurrock, or is it across the wider? And who is the membership on that panel to actually make the decision?
Okay, so the first question you asked me was about the contact and the letterbox. Did you want to know a little bit more about that? We just think it could be. Yeah, okay, so. Okay, the reason they're specialist staff, and I'll try and say this as short a summary as I can. So Janet's just saying about, if you're severing relationships between a birth child and a parent, then you really need to get that right. So what's really important for us and what's really important for children that are adopted is that those children throughout their childhood, where possible, and we absolutely advocate for this, there's contact between them and their birth parents, maybe not directly through the adopters. So really, you're dealing with really kind of sensitive and emotional, so you're dealing with birth parents that you want to get the best for them for that communication, and you're dealing with adopters who have adopted children and they're asking them to prepare letters for the birth parents. So we do need specialist workers for that really care. But what I do want to say just on the back of that, I know you haven't asked me, but there's a thing that's come out through the courts and through adoption and research, and it's called a safe and meaningful tool. And as life evolves, so does practice and policies and procedures. We referred to it earlier. And we're moving away from the closed adoption contact. And now what we do with all of our children that we go through, if the plan is adoption, and I'd said when I started out, we always want children to go home if they can. But if the plan is adoption, we do an assessment about if it can be a face-to-face contact. And we actually have those conversations with our adopters now when they come forward on their training, so that they understand actually that there's different levels, and if we can promote that, we absolutely will. And we do promote a couple of face-to-face adoptions. So again, it's a bit like Janet said, it's so wide and varied, but we have to ensure that we account for all need. In terms of the panel, I actually have we're going to talk about the adoption panel. It's a paper, so would you like to wait for that paper? And okay.
The question. Okay. We go on to the recommendation. Page 45. Do we agree with the recommendation on number 2 on page 45? Yeah, agreed? Okay, agreed. Agenda is on page 77, page 77 to 104, fostering statement of purpose. Can I ask Elise McQueen to present the report, please? Is you tonight?
I'm just finding my way down to it, okay.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Okay, so there's the initial cover report, and then there's the fostering statement of purpose. So in terms of the fostering service compiles an annual statement of purpose which sets out the aims and objectives of the service as a whole. This statement of purpose relates to the fostering service provided by the fostering recruitment team, the fostering support team, and the placement assessment team in the fostering adoption placement service. That sounds a little bit complicated, but I can break it down. But generally what it means is that in terms of the fostering, there's 4 separate services that come together as a whole to deliver the fostering. So the aims and objectives of the fostering service is that all children are entitled to grow as part of a stable and loving family. And I think, again, it's the same principles of fostering, that if children can be at home, we would like them to be at home. That's first and foremost our principles and values. And if they can't, then obviously we want to offer them a home that's stable and loving, and where it's safe for them to stay. And children should be matched wherever possible with families who reflect their ethnicity, their culture, their language and religion. And these factors have to be balanced against the need to be in a permanent home within a reasonable time frame. So the foster service seeks to provide a range of foster homes, including parent and child foster homes, to meet the diverse needs and improve outcome for children and young people. So we have short-term foster placements, long-term foster placements, and as I said, parent and child placements. We also have short breaks and respite care. And we also have the Mockingbird model, which I can touch on later in the report. Again, there's a list in here about how we want to achieve these outcomes, and obviously all of them are important, but I've just picked out a few key ones. So run an effective and efficient fostering panel with good sound decision-making process. So that what that means is, in the same way that when I talked about adopters and assessments, there's quite a robust fostering process, fostering assessments, and when those assessments are completed, they go to panel for oversight and scrutiny, and you'll hear about panel afterwards. But they have to have sound judgment. Following the panel, the decision then goes to an agency decision maker for sign-off. So there's several layers of foster carers being signed off. I've said again about, here I've highlighted on mine about ensuring the match with carers to meet their assessed needs, and support. We need to support the carers to do that, and also to ensure that all staff within the fostering service are suitable to work with children, and that they're qualified and supported in continual professional development. I'm just going to reflect some of my notes here. So one of the things I've said that we provide is the recruitment. That's what I'm saying about the recruitment service of recruiting foster carers. We then have the assessment. So we have senior social work practitioners who do the assessment and the approval. And then we've got the supervising social worker. So once approved, they get allocated a supervising social worker who works with them, supports them, supervises them. That's very separate from the child social worker. That's solely for the foster carer. We offer training, supervision and support. We do placement stability work and supervision. We have annual independent reviews of the foster carers. And when there is occasions, we manage safeguarding allegations through the standards of care. The priorities for 25-26 is to recruit and retain foster carers, including parent and child, improve placement stability and reduce reliance on external provision, strengthen co-production with foster carers, and promote equality, diversity and identity. Again, I don't really feel like I've done the report justice, because it's such a long report, and it really says in detail about what we do, the processes we do, how we assess our foster carers, and how they become approved, and then the work subsequently after that. Is there any question?
Councillor Hurrell.
Yeah, how's the recruitment of foster carers going? Because I know it's been a struggle for years, and I take it it's no change, but is there any improvement in it nationally and locally?
Okay, so last year, I mean, it's got to be in context of, so I'll just do a little bit of narrative of the data. So basically, we've got at the moment, with Thurrock carers, we've got 110 children, 80 in-house and 30 connected kinship. So that's the highest number that we've had in-house for some significant time, so they're really good numbers. With our independent fostering agencies, we've got 92 children. So in terms of the approvers last year, I mean, I say this only, but we only had 4 foster care approvals last year. However, we had double the number of connected carers, so family carers, that went through our panel. So that's good. And then in terms of we're a part of Foster East, and what they do is they, with the DFE, they set targets. So for us, on the size of the authority that we are, they set the target as 8 foster carers, and we're already on track to meet that target now. We've got 8 foster carers coming through now, so we're going to meet our annual target.
Just add something briefly to that. So Elise talked briefly there about connected carers. And so our connected carers have the same assessment process. So they are foster carers. So I want to just be clear that although it's not included in the number that Elise has provided, we've recruited more connected carers than we would normally. So that's that. And that's the kind of way forward. We see that we, of course, we know we need foster carers, but connected carers are really important for enabling children to remain in their families, and they can't be forgotten as foster carers because they are foster carers. They have the same training, they expected to meet the same standards, so they are foster carers.
So yeah, just obviously it's a good thing, the connected carers, where they can stay within the, well, hopefully extended family or friendship group. Do they get the same financial support that every other foster carer would get?
Yes, they do. Obviously, they need to do the same training, and and they can progress as well. So yes, they do get the same payments.
Thank you. Can I just clarify, connected carers are the same as kinship carers, is that, or it's just a different terminology?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So they have the same, everything, as you said, the same training, is the same status. Is it everything the same, or are there any differences?
So the only difference in terms of connected carers is then usually for a named child, whereas with our foster carers, when they do their assessments, we don't do them for named children. They're for the children of that need to be foster cared. So that is the difference.
Thank you.
Councillor Horo.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The reason I asked my question, though, is because it may be because I got involved in this last year, obviously, but I've noticed there's a lot of advertisements going out on social media for foster carers and that, and it may be because I'm new to this. I was new last year to this. I sort of noticed it a lot more, whereas before I never really noticed it. So it's good that there's lots of, I mean, they're going to Lakeside and they're doing libraries as well, I believe in that. So, and it's just really good that this is improving. So that's why I asked the question. So thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Can I go to the recommendation on page 77, number 2, on page 77? Do members agree with the recommendation on number 2? Yeah, great. Okay. Item number 9 can be found on pages 105 to 122 of the agenda. A fostering and adoption panel reports. Can I please ask Brenda Warner to present the report, please? Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. My name is Brendan Warner, and I'm a member of the Council's Fostering and Adoption panel. And I want to just share with you some key themes from the panel report, which has been provided to you. The panel is made up of individuals independent of the Council, and our role is clearly laid out within the report. We focus on 3 key areas: adoption, fostering and kinship care. In reality, we act as a critical friend of the local authority and we have a key focus on quality assurance. In addition to looking at the abilities and performance of carers, we do also highlight to the authority key practice issues where appropriate. Panel membership is made up of a range of diverse professional backgrounds. For example, I'm a qualified social worker and I also grew up in a household that fostered. The quality of the reports presented to panel is genuinely of a high standard. Feedback from individuals and couples attending panel is consistently positive. We are consistently striving to ensure that the voice of the child is heard throughout the panel. Feedback from prospective adopters, foster and kinship carers about the assessment and preparation process is always very positive. Individuals often comment that at the beginning of the journey they start with rose-tinted spectacles but quickly gain a more realistic view of the challenges and rewards they may face. We are very mindful of the need to recruit more adopters and foster carers both locally and nationally. The local authority may wish to review the level of reward that's given to Thurrock carers that successfully introduce prospective foster carers that go on to become carers in their own right. The panel welcomes the strong focus on open adoption and is keen for prospective carers to embrace ongoing contact with birth family where it is in the child's best interest. There is an increased awareness of the impact on trauma on children and young people. The panel welcomes this increased emphasis and a strong emphasis on training of trauma-informed practice and therapeutic parenting. Finally, I would just like to say there is always an opportunity for any counsellor to observe a meeting of panel, and I'm happy to try and respond to any questions you may have.
Any questions from members? Councillor Assistant.
I was just really interested to hear foster carers' point of view, I suppose, and presumably you agree, if I'm able to ask you, agree with the positive report we have of the panel.
I went to panel 3 months ago. I think you were on the panel. Even I've been fostering for quite a while. It's still quite nerve-wracking. You never know what's going to be asked. But Rebecca, who does the household reviews, is really good. She meets you there. You have your SSW there as well with you. And they can make it as informal as they can when you walk into a room, a semicircle of adults, that you just never know what questions are going to be asked. But they are, they do an amazing job because they have got a lot of reading to do. I would imagine every household is different, every case is different. I've only had positive experiences when I've gone for my annuals. Well, we go every 3 years, but obviously we have a household review every year. But we only go to panel every 3. But it is nerve-wracking, but I think they make it as reassuring as they can. I don't know about Jackie.
I've had experience. I'm due at panel in November, so it's sort of coming up 3 years since we were last at panel, but I've also sat with the panel for adoption. We adopted a little girl, and I think I would agree with absolutely everything Wendy said. It's always been a really positive experience for us. They've read everything. They've been really thorough on the questions they've asked, but also given some really lovely positive feedback to us, which is really nice. So all good experience. Might change my mind in November. Remember that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, lovely to hear, obviously.
Sorry. Okay. I'm just curious to know more about open adoption. I'm just thinking about the impacts on the child being adopted and also the adoptive parents, how that could impact on the relationship going forward. Is there any kind of support to actually help the child to, overcome that he or she is adopted in the long run? Because open adoption can have that kind of impact on both the adoptive parents and also the adopted child, in terms of the emotional well-being.
Yeah, and I'm sure both Janet and Elise would be able to answer this even more thoroughly than me. But I know now that there is a national focus on, right from the point of applicants coming forward and expressing an interest in either fostering or adoption, contact and family time, as it's often referred to now, is mentioned and is discussed right at the very beginning. And there's a lot of evidence to support that when it is safe to do so, actually removing the child from any birth family in entirety and severing that contact completely actually has a damaging impact. So where it can be managed face-to-face is ideal, but that does come with a lot of additional support, and often adopters will meet with birth parents without the adopted young person there to begin with, and there'll be support along the way. And if it can't be done face-to-face, then it can always be done through letterbox contact again. So there is a lot of support in place. It's not something that just goes into it. And yes, there are some pitfalls, but I think we have to realise in the world that we live in today, children can make contact with their birth family through social media, through many other avenues, and it's much better for adopters and adoptees to be supported with that process rather than just to leave them to go at it on their own with no formal or professional support around them.
Sorry, the child wants to go back home. Do we encourage that to happen, you know, in case the child changes his mind or her mind to go back home to the birth parents?
Again, there will always be a drive, but you would hope that during the process that the child has been with their adoptive family, they have built that attachment, they have built their bond. There will always be a draw to go back to birth family. I don't think you could ever remove that from a young person. There will always be that draw. And sometimes that does ultimately happen. But again, you would hope that the attachment and the relationship that the adopters have built with the young person, with the adoptee, means that actually that door isn't shut. If they do that, that doesn't mean the adoptive family say, well, actually, if things go wrong, you can't come back to us. Actually, that's about having a very much a backwards and forwards and saying, look, we understand your need to go out, we understand your need to explore that and to make contact and to have more control over your contact with your birth family, but we're here to support you with that. And if things don't work out and you come back, we'll do that. And again, the adoption service would be there. Even post-adoption, there would be a support service available to adoptive carers, parents, and to adopted young people to have support in that process. Yes, it does happen, but again, you would hope that the attachment is there, that actually that door isn't shut just because a young person, when they become an adult, chooses, or become a teenager, chooses to explore that option themselves.
Sorry. For a child who is maybe adopted, maybe when he was 6 months or 7 months old, and as they get older, would they be able to know they are adopted? How do we handle that, you know, in that process?
Again, that's something that we look at both with foster carers, and my foster care colleagues over there will be able to talk even better again than I can on this, and with adopters. But we talk about building memory boxes and life story work with young people, and that's about being age appropriate, and that develops and changes as the child gets older, because obviously it needs to be age appropriate. But it's about it not being a secret, and it's about it not being kept from them. It's about embracing that. It's about saying it, and again, it never comes from a point of judging their parents. It's about actually they weren't able to give you what you needed at that period of time, rather than saying they did this, and this. Foster carers play a crucial role in capturing the early life experiences for young people that are placed with them, so that actually that history isn't lost, and that when they do move on to their adoptive parents, actually they have a record of what happened in their first 6 months, their first 9 months, their first 12 months. They can refer back to pictures. They've got their blankets that their parents may have given them when they came out of hospital, and there's notes that explain all of those things. So those key formative items aren't lost, and their history isn't lost. It's kept and it's gone through, and we'll often say to foster carers that they play a crucial role in doing that. When you do introductions with adopters and that transition takes place, it's about keeping routine in place, familiar items, and making sure that child's early life story goes with them onto the adopters. So adopters should, and again they'll be supported and they're trained with it, they should be looking at that young person's life story with them throughout their journey. It's not a case if you do it once and it stops, it's something that you continually revisit. And as a child gets older, they're going to ask you more things. You know, what a 3-year-old accepts as an understanding, what a 5-year-old accepts, and then what a 15-year-old accepts are very different things. And so that journey and that information needs to change, but it always needs to be based on the truth.
Sorry, the last question. So what if the adoptive parents don't want to have an open adoption? So how do we advocate for, and then they can have that and encourage them to have it?
Again, during the assessment and during the training, and very much at panel, it is something that we really focus on. We talk to them about the benefits. We are very honest about the risks and the challenges that it poses. Ultimately, if an adopter, once they have adopted, chooses they're not going to do it, it can be very difficult to insist on that. But that's then part of panel's role and part of the assessing social worker's role during that, to make sure that they're not giving, to be very crass, they're not just being given lip service. Actually, the applicants, the adoptive parents, really understand the reason behind contact and the benefits. And it isn't unusual for people to start the journey saying, I couldn't do open face-to-face contact, it just wouldn't work for me, it's not right. And as they understand why, and it's not about being for them, it's about being for the adopted young person, actually that does change. They understand actually this isn't a threat to them, this is something that will actually further support the relationship and the attachment they build with that young person.
Thank you. No, hold on.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It says in here, the local authority may wish to review the level of reward given to Thurrock carers that successfully introduce prospective foster carers that go on to become carers in their own right. Just above it, it says that reassuring to hear the majority of foster carers fully well supported local authority. So is there a conversation that's needed to be had about the financial, the money they're given? Because I'm sure it says in the reports, obviously yourself and the panel think this, because it wouldn't be in the report otherwise. So I don't know if there is continually conversations going on, but it does sound like a conversation that may need to be had.
So again, it's not for panel to set the funding rates and the incentives that the local authority choose to offer, but it is within our remit to offer advice if we feel that actually it's something that could benefit. I think yourself raised that you've started to notice there's many more adverts out and you're becoming much more aware of picking that out. There is not only local authorities that are recruiting for foster carers, there is a number of independent fostering agencies that are doing it and that do it very successfully as well. At the moment, there are terms and conditions obviously, but if an approved Thurrock carer makes a recommendation of someone within their network or someone they know that goes on to become a foster carer, they get a reward element of £250. If you compare that to other local authorities, it is significantly below. And if you compare it to what other independent fostering agencies are offering, it is not even in the same sphere. And so, given that we are in an area that we are all trying to recruit from the same pool of available resource, as it were, people that potentially could become foster carers, I think if it was something that could be reviewed and looked at, actually, it may attract more people to come forward. It may not, but again, if you compare it to other local authorities and other IFAs, what Thurrock are currently offering is significantly below.
Are you talking about rewards? So if you recommend somebody, okay. I mean, it's something we could always consider, and we can always have those conversations. We're not closed to having that conversation. So we know that our fostering rates itself, we review them every year, and we make sure we're in line, I think, with London, actually, to make sure we're competitive. But that's something, of course, we can consider and have that conversation about, but within the funds we have.
Yeah, I'm glad you spoke on it, Janet, because Brendan, you give the recommendation that you have no real power to say, to do anything sort of thing. That we don't take that as the wrong way, please. But Janet might have a bit more, you know, say in it and that, of course. So it'd be good if we are way below, that could be re-looked at. So thank you.
Councillor Sisterson.
Well, just to come on the same point, really, just, I mean, it's not something I'm hugely familiar with, but it may prove cost effective because it would be cheaper, presumably, to have a in-house foster carer rather than the private agencies, maybe.
We'll take that away.
Thank you. We've moved on a little bit, but I was just going to go back to when you were saying about for councillors to attend panel. I attended the foster carers review panel a couple of years ago, and it was a really, really insightful experience. It was a day, I think it was a day long, the panel I attended, and it just really reassured me of the sort of robustness and the challenge and the overview and the scrutiny that's given to foster carers from the local authority. So it was actually a really good experience. So if anybody, you know, wanted to go, I would recommend it.
Any other question? Okay. Can we go to the recommendations? Can be found on page 105. Members agree with the recommendation on page 105, number 2. Agreed? Okay. Thank you. Item number 10, work program, is on pages 123 to 124 of the agenda. Could the officer please take us through the work program?
Okay, I'll do that. So the next committee is in January. What we would like to do, so we'll be meeting with Councillor Chikwu to discuss what's on the work programme. So we're trying to theme them. So the conversation we'd had with Councillor Chikwu was about theming the committee, so that we're kind of looking at the same area. So the next one, we were hoping to look at health. So that would mean our health colleagues coming along and talking about the health offer. I mean, in here it says the annual report of the virtual school, but what we would like to do is theme it so that it feels like it's all kind of, so today it's been fostering and adoption, and that if we could, the next one, look at health. We know that there's a priority in terms of initial health assessments, but it would be good to talk about the health offer for our looked after children and care leavers. A mental health, so CAMS, to produce a report around our mental health offer to children and young people. Obviously, we always have a performance report, and so if it's the way it seems to have been listed here is very different to how we think. So I don't know, Carly, if it's not the updated one hasn't come through. So it's got addiction on there for looked after. It's got addiction in terms of substance misuse for looked after children. That's a health matter. Annual health report. That's a health matter. That's what I would be proposing. So I think the things that are on here are the right things, but I think they're probably in the wrong order. And then it then gives our virtual school the opportunity to go through all the outcomes for the year, because it takes a while for things to come through fully. And then at the next one, look at education, our education, employment and training, looking at those young people who are in need, apprenticeships, so it all kind of fits together.
Sorry, Janet, can I just ask that the mental health CAMS is really important, so can CAMS be here?
They are usually. Tina Russell from CAMS is usually here. I know she gave her apologies tonight, but she generally attends even when she hasn't got a report, so I don't know why she couldn't attend tonight.
Can we have a bit of I know it's not to do with health, well it is, can we have the health assessments back on where we are on that and see if scrutiny has picked that up?
Okay, so I will ask for a meeting with Councillor Chikwu and have that discussion and just get those on the work programme in the right order.
Councillor Speed.
Yeah, I mean, just moving on from what Councillor Watson said, obviously at our March meeting, we've got the initial health assessment, and I just think we maybe have to be a little bit fluid with that, given what we talked about earlier on about asking the Children's Services Committee to look at that subject. So it would make us look a bit silly if we said it's a matter of urgency and we asked them to do something and they did something, and then we say, oh, well, we'll get round to talking about it in March. So I think there needs to maybe be a bit of fluidity in the week or 2 weeks before our next meeting. If there is something to bring back that's fresh, then we could maybe take item 5 from the March meeting and bring that forward. I think, you know, dependent, as Councillor Watt said, what response we get back. The other issue that we touched, it really is minuscule in terms of corporate parenting. But I remember, I think it wasn't the last meeting, it was the meeting before possibly, when both Councillor Sisterson and myself spoke about the huge growth industry of children's homes, particularly in Thurrock. And over the intervening months, we've seen an awful lot. And it is a genuine area, I think, of public concern. It may be public concern that isn't valid. It may all be a bit of smoke and mirrors and people getting a bit frosty on social media when the problem isn't there. But we spoke previously about making sure that these children's homes that are growing in number because they're financially attractive to councils, that if we that we really are sure that if we're going to be putting our corporate children into any of those home situations, that we are 100% belt and braces, that these places are absolutely up to scratch, because some of them, I've seen the planning applications and the business reports and what's behind them, and quite frankly, some of them scare me. You know, it is a pure money-making operation rather than a care operation, and I don't think as corporate parents we should ever vindicate putting our children into a situation which isn't right for them, but because it saves us some money. That should never, ever, ever happen. So I don't know where we fit that in, whether it came in under social care, you know, there's children's social care performance, whether it's part of the report, that whoever compiles that report, it's just an appendix to that, or whether it's just a reference point in a paragraph. It's just something like that, because I think it's really important we keep on top of these things. We talked about it with real concern. It's in the minutes. There's no problem in revisiting it, albeit briefly, in my view.
So can I just say, so we had, so I agree with Councillor Spout on this one actually, but we had this conversation before this meeting, and I think what I need to feel comfortable about is these children homes that are changing usage have to go through Ofsted. What does Ofsted ask and require in order to make it a qualified children's home? And if it isn't, I think what we need back is, if it's failed, how are we notified? And then what's the process on that? Now, I know we had about children coming out the borough and it's the responsibility of the local authority of that particular children. I absolutely get that. But because it's happening so quickly and it's known that there's a money making, it's just what is the criteria of Ofsted for a children's home and how is that monitored? If that could bring back, I think, I feel a bit more comfortable in that.
I suppose what I would say is, so some of what you're talking about is the change of usage. Those are planning considerations. So sometimes we get notified of change of usage if somebody's looking to use it for a care home. But often change of usage does not mean they can use the property as a residential home for children or a supported accommodation or any of those things. All it means is they're asking for planning permission to be able to do that. That doesn't give them registration and doesn't mean they can move children in. And all local authorities, if we're placing children in a home, so if somebody comes forward and says, I've got a home, you can place a child in, we would always check that they are registered, that they have an Ofsted registration number, they will have been inspected. There's a whole range of things that residentials have to do before they're registered. It can take up to a year from the point of requesting a change of use to a residential being approved as a residential placement.
So I get that. My challenge back is they do a change of use in order, they have to do that change of use to be a children's provision, and to recognise with Ofsted. So they do the change of use, planning does that, I get that. But before they allow somebody through their front door, surely Ofsted is in there doing an Ofsted inspection. And that's what, we get the change of use bit. We know there's legislation, planning legislation, that you can't stop that, because of what it is. But our bit is, my bit is, how do you get it? Why doesn't it come from a children's home? What is the process of becoming that? Because I'm pretty sure they're not going to just change usage and start putting children in there without it going through a series of checks by Ofsted. So what is that? And how is that monitored? Like you're saying, do we get the Ofsted report for them, individual ones in our borough? How's that monitored? That's what.
So Ofsted reports are published online. If it's a home, before we would place a child in a home, and every local authority would do this, they really would, you would read the Ofsted report before you placed a child in a home. And you would make sure, there's a whole range of things that people have to do before they're registered. They have to have a registered manager, they all have to have DBS checks, they have to do certain training, the home has to be in a certain condition. I haven't got a list of all the things, but I can provide that. There's a whole range of things that has to be done before a home will be approved by Ofsted. Ofsted will visit, they will look at their policies, their procedures, they'll look at the property. They'll want to make sure it's the right environment for a child. And they continue to be inspected, just like local authorities, more frequently, in fact, because it's really important that those homes are appropriate. And we go in, we do visits, we always look at children's bedrooms, we have those conversations, we look at the sort of what's the community area like, what's the kitchen like, what's the bathrooms like. All foster care, all residentials also have what they call, is it Reg 40? Reg 44 visits. So there's a whole range of things that happen to make sure that it's appropriate. Of course, we can. There is information available that tells you what makes a home appropriate, how is it registered, what is the process. There is a whole process that's gone through. As much as you can. It takes a lot longer than, for example, assessing a foster carer. It takes a long time for a home. You have to have a registered individual, you have to have a registered manager, the staff all have to be DBS checked, they all have to be trained in a certain way. There's a whole range of things that happen. It isn't as simple as I've made an application and I can then apply for it to Ofsted. There's lots of things you have to do before Ofsted will even consider it and before they'll even assess it.
Yeah, on that, maybe you could talk to comms about it, maybe, because the noise out there is that, there's another children's home, blah, 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 and it's always negative. But that's wrong, that is, sorry. There is some positivity to it, as I feel myself, that they've got a home, they've got somewhere to go, they've been looked after, Ofsted, do their reports, they're looking after them. But maybe just to quieten the noise down, just maybe talk to comms, maybe they could do something to explain that there is, not in detail of course, but there is procedures that go through to say that these homes are safe for children, safe haven for children.
It's a difficult one because there will be a number of homes in Thurrock that have nothing to do with children. They're not, we don't register them, we don't necessarily think that they're, we wouldn't even know where half of them are. So unless a child is placed in them, so if a child is placed, they have to notify us that a child is placed in our area. It's hard to comment on every home within Thurrock. And what I would say, that I hear what you're saying about how people might feel about it. I can't talk about every child, but these are children who are vulnerable. They deserve to live in the community like everybody else, is what I would say. Whether they're Thurrock children, Essex's children, Lewisham's children, they're children. And they deserve to live in the community, not somewhere, sort of not in my backyard, sort of. They deserve to live in the community.
Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. I'll follow on briefly with this discussion on children's home. My understanding is that the children actually want to be in that situation. Is that the case or not always?
Want to be.
Would they prefer to be in a children's home rather than with a family? Is that not correct? Or?
No, that's not correct. Most children would prefer to be, if at all possible, with their own families. I think most children, if you ask them what would they prefer, they'd prefer to be with their families. We always try and place children within a family situation if we can, but sometimes it's not appropriate, depending on their circumstances. There are some children who would say, I've got a family. I've already got a family. I don't want to live with a family. I don't need a new mum. I don't need a new dad. But we would always try and place children in a family environment, and often they only go into residential if their needs mean that they need to be in a residential, or it meets their needs in terms of their age and understanding. But children don't say, I want to go, you know, it's not a case of we build residentials or we place in residential because that's what children like, no.
Okay, but in your way of responding, and you have sort of agreed with that in that it's a need basis, but because I have had a little bit of indirect experience, and they are quite small, some of them, and I've known that they've got dogs, so it's almost they're like trying their best to create like a family environment. I understand you're saying it's not ideal, but my understanding from this is only one experience I've had from the people that were working there. They actually said that I think there were teenagers there, that they'd actually almost they'd preferred to be in that situation than with a family. I know that's just an individual case, and I do understand what you're saying. So it's not always a terrible thing, is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes these children can feel, content, and they make it like a home with having a dog and everything like that.
And of course, we'd want it to be like a home environment. And of course, there's a number of ways you can register. So we have 16 and 17-year-olds who are moving towards independence. They can't live at home. They're of an age where they don't want to be in foster care. So you might be talking about supported accommodation, which has to be registered with Ofsted, again, but it's not a children's home. It's supported accommodation. It's somewhere between being in a foster placement residential and living independently. So there are different, I don't know what environment you're talking about, but yes, it's trying to create something that young people feel able to kind of identify with, and we want young people to be prepared for adulthood. So if it is supported accommodation, that has to be registered, like I said. But I feel strongly about it, I really do, that children should be in the community, and I know that's difficult. And I don't know how I'd feel if that was next door to me, but I feel strongly that children should be in the community and supported to be in the community. And what we should be doing is trying to kind of understand the community and have those conversations. And we would do that around our own children and try and kind of make that, if there are issues, that we address them as they come up. Because that can happen, you know, in your own homes, that, you know, if you've got a child who's playing music loud or who's doing things. But there is something about when it's a residential that people have a view about where they are and are there too many. But there is a shortage of placements for children. There is a sufficiency issue nationally. And so, you know, there will be children's homes. I can't comment on individuals opening up children's homes, but what I can say is that they have to be registered. And that is a long process, and there are real regulations around it. But what we can do is provide you with details around the whole process for registration and what that means and the expectations.
Thank you. Yes, it's very complicated, isn't it? Very complicated. I've got a slightly different question now. So in January, you've got mental health coming, and you said around sort of substance misuse as well. You mentioned health coming. Will you have someone from a public health officer, because of the substance misuse and mental health comes under there?
So we will go through these reports. We'll work out who should be the most appropriate person So we'll have those conversations with our health colleagues about who is the right person for each of these reports. And we'll be doing that within the next week or two so that we make sure that they've got plenty of time to provide those reports and they've got the date for committee and they're able to attend.
Because I know that substance misuse is an increased problem with looked after children compared with other groups of children.
Sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I wouldn't be able to say that was, I mean, I don't think we've got a huge substance misuse problem amongst our looked after children population, no.
To know locally, I think nationally it is a recorded increase.
I think substance misuse is a national issue, both for children looked after and children who are not looked after.
Councillor Speed.
Sorry, just to, and I sort of apologise, go back to the previous discussion about children's, and I sort of feel a little bit apologetic for raising it now because it became a topic, but I think it needs to be put in context as well. I've read a huge amount about every single application that's come into Thurrock, and in terms of the planning application and the background to the people or the companies that are in, and generally, as a rule of thumb, the sort of properties that we're looking about, the sort of homes that they're talking about are for high needs children, where there's a significantly high proportion of adult carers needed per child. I mean, I think in one I read that it actually worked out that over the course of a 24-hour period, there were always at least 4 or 5 people for one child. It is a very, I mean, the rates of care for that sort of operation are massively high. And the reason that people are looking at Thurrock is property is relatively cheap compared to other areas, particularly in inner London. Staff pay is relatively cheap because you've got less waiting and things like that. So it is an attractive business proposition for those people. And I'm absolutely certain that nobody would ever authenticate or validate a home unless all the appropriate questions were asked. And I go back to what I first said. This is a microscopic number in terms of the children that are our corporate children that would ever be referred. You know, there possibly isn't even one that has such specific needs where they would go into a place like that. But I just, as we touched on it before, you know, I wanted to just sort of just have it somewhere flagged up that we're looking at, because the danger is, and I'm really sorry to have to say this, sometimes finance takes precedence over level of care, and sometimes that there is no other way around that actually happening. But where we can possibly avoid it and where it might ever possibly impact on our corporate kids from Thurrock, which is what we're here to look after as this committee, that's why I flagged it up. But I think Janet absolutely was very erudite in what she said, clearly passionately, clearly knowledgeable about that sphere. And, you know, I don't think it's particularly dangerous. There is a huge amount of smoke and nonsense talked about children's homes, but the ones that tend to be coming into Thurrock at the moment, it's maybe a semi-detached 3 and 4 bedroom house, of which 3 of the bedrooms are for carers, and it's only 1 child or 2 children. So it is, you know, it's not a Janet and John children's home, for want of a better phrase, or it's not a home where it's a group of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids who are going through their teenage angst and taking it out on the neighbours. That's not the reality of what it is. So I want to just make that quite clear that, you know, I don't see, and I share, you know, these kids deserve the best possible care. And the ones that we really care about, not that we don't care about all of them, but the ones we really care about, what we're here to look after, are the ones from Thurrock.
Councillor Sisterson.
Yeah, I'd like to, going back to that again, the children's homes. I fully agree. They should be in the middle of communities. That's where they're going to get the best life experiences, and it'll benefit them, but hopefully benefit the community as well to appreciate more the difficulties they have. But I'd also like, I think it's quite important that the locations, in planning, the locations are out there, you know, because they have to give the address and everything, and I'm not sure that we can get around that particularly. But I wouldn't want a big fuss to be made about one particular one so that the locations become very well known. So, you know, because they obviously people deserve their privacy apart from anything else. So, yeah, I'd just like to put that out there, really. Thanks.
Any other updates? Okay. Updates from your side? Okay. So, thank you, everyone. That concludes the business of the meeting this evening. And I now declare this meeting closed at what time? 8:55. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you.